Hey, this is Rich Hart. Welcome back to the Rich Hart Show. And thanks. My special guest is Ewea Pettis.
Yes.
Miss Pettis, Miss Ewea.
Yes.
All right, before we get started, we have to jump into this because you were telling me the story about your name.
Yes.
All right, Ewea. And it took me like 4 days, all right, to learn to pronounce it. All right. Ewea, tell our audience themselves what that means.
Yes. Ewea means good luck, good nature, and God's blessing in the flesh.
And you have a lot of that too as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I do.
So now that we've got that, Miss Ewea, engineering. Okay.
Yes.
People and process. That's what we're going to be talking about today, folks. People and process. But we're coming from an engineering mindset.
Yes.
All right. And really developing the nature or the resources and the skills, natural tools, talents for people.
Yes.
And I think that's extremely important. If I was to ask folks themselves already, and the folks really want to know, who is Ewea?
Mm-hmm.
Who is Ewea?
Yeah. So I started my professional journey as an industrial engineer,
Okay.
right in Metro Chicago.
Okay.
And as I grew, I got exposure into manufacturing and supply chain.
Okay.
And as I transitioned into nonprofit, Rich, one thing that I noticed is there was a pattern.
Okay.
There's a pattern between mission-driven leaders
Right.
from vision to execution.
Okay.
And there was a gap in there. And one of the gap is, again, with my engineering lens, I noticed that was a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of great strategies, but no process to back it up.
Right. Exactly.
So that's what birthed Somi Consulting, because I saw a gap and I wanted to fill in that gap based on the skill set that I have acquired many years in engineering and actually bring it into the nonprofit section.
Engineers. Different type of people.
Yeah.
Gotta love them. All right.
Gotta love us.
I come from an engineering mindset myself, things of this nature, because everything's got, a particular process. It's got its time. It's got its plan. All right. And it's got a particular position, which, fosters execution.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. How's this really helped you from the engineering?
Gosh, I think one of the things that I was telling you earlier that a leader said to me is never diminish what comes easy to you.
Right.
So what comes easy to me, I'm able to look at end-to-end process and notice the patterns, notice where the gaps are.
Okay.
And I'm able to say, okay, here's what we need to do. And it's bringing structure into an end-to-end process.
All right. So let's dive down a little bit. All right. Our crux already that we're working with today is people.
Yeah.
Okay. And the type of people we have generations. You have different individuals themselves working in different mindsets. Then I'm going to throw other external factors in like news, politics, way people see things change, demographics are already. And these people themselves are under all sorts of stress. They're seeing different types of outcomes. Folks themselves are getting tied into areas that they don't want to get tied into. Hearing news, facts, and features themselves that are either true or not true. All right. So people now are connecting those dots. And now we've got to go and we've got to dive into process with that. All right. And so how do we handle all this? What is the directives and what's the direction that we need when we're working with people and process?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rich. When I think about people and process and how to bring people along the journey, I start with what are those repeatable things that you do in your operations every day?
Right.
So if it's something that you do every day, do you have it documented?
Okay.
If you don't have documented, that's where we start with the process.
Okay.
We record what you do. And I think, Rich, the biggest thing is getting that tribal knowledge from people
I like that.
and putting it on paper.
Right.
What I found out throughout my years of just observing different executive directors and nonprofits is they hold all the answers. They hold the tribal knowledge. They're thinking about something, but that knowledge doesn't transfer or trickle down to the rest of the leaders in the organization.
Why do we find this? Is it that they just don't, or is it a fear of giving out too much information? Or is it a fact itself that maybe the individuals that they were shedding that information to may not be knowledgeable enough to take it to its next steps? Or are those leaders and directors themselves shy? Or are they holding on to the job positions? What are you finding?
No, what I'm seeing is it's not so much that they're not afraid to share it. It's they've not taken time to really step back and document what they're thinking, documenting the transfer of knowledge.
So this planning process is extremely important.
It's very important.
And it's extremely important from an engineering standpoint.
Yes.
Planning is extremely important. I see things differently sometimes from a planning perspective.
Yeah.
I say, guys, it's all in here. I got it. I'm going to put it down for you. All right. But these are the things themselves, because as we go through, there may be some flexible changes. There may be some things themselves that we may have to augment.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in your process, and we're working with people in process themselves, is that easy to implement?
Oh, no, it's never
didn't
easy.
think so.
Whenever you're working with people, it's never easy. And it always starts with meeting people where they are.
Okay.
So how you do that is first you go into the organization and kind of assess where they are.
Mm-hmm.
From that assessment, you're able to determine where do I start? Who do I interview first? And actually bring them along. So back to your question about the executive directors, just keeping that knowledge, I think it has a little bit to do with trust. Trust that if I were to transfer this, would this person be able to execute it in the way that I have executed it?
Sure.
But that becomes a leadership bottleneck.
Yeah.
If that's not done properly, or if you're not bringing your team along the journey with you. And that's one of the things that I talk about as I convene an executive roundtable. What I keep hearing is that gap in I am the decision maker for everything, and it's exhausting.
That right, exactly.
So, it's very exhausting. So then I go back and say, well, why is that? Do you have tribal knowledge that you're holding on to that need to be documented? So now you have a repeated process you can hand down to your directors, to your managers, and they're able to execute. Those are some of the gaps that I see when I talk to a lot of executive directors.
Challenges, choice, and decisions are going to come into play here, already. And do you find it from a top-down or a bottom-up?
A lot of what I see is a mix.
Okay.
There's some organizations that get it, where it's okay.
They get it. I like that.
Get it.
That happen to get it. All right.
They happen to get it. Where it is, let's see what's the team's knowledge in this? Because Rich, what I found out is the people closest to the process are the best executors.
Sure, right. Those are the folks themselves. They day in, day out. They're eating it. They're adding the cereal and sugar in the cereal,
right.
The milk in the cereals, right?
The day-to-day operations, they're the best ones.
Okay.
So whenever you're making a decision or you have a vision and you have that strategic planning that we talked about comes in place, before the execution, there's an opportunity for you to bring those key players, those subject matter experts in the organization to review what you have planned so that the execution could go smoothly.
Sounds like communication already is going to be a key factor, all right, in working with this. Because as you talk about people, all right, the communication of how the process is to be laid out or how to be executed, is going to be the key. There are individuals themselves, and we've seen it before, that they just can't give a clear and decisive direction, all right, to actually fulfill what that obligation of the process is going to be. How do we handle that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Rich.
I have a couple of good questions every once in a while. Here it is.
How do we handle that? Yeah. What I've seen is those people that work with me in the organization are ready.
Okay.
They are ready. I've not really experienced somebody that has not been ready to kind of go to that next step.
In your field of play, and you're working with a particular product or a resource, or you're working with a particular service, all right, you're hopefully well identified and well integrated. Okay, maybe a word like that, integrated into what that end result's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And so within this communication, I think it's going to be extremely important. All right. And how we're communicating. Do you find that to be a problem from the communication side? How
people communicate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I find that if they don't have the right people in the right room when they're communicating whatever the vision or the mission is, that it happens to be a gap. Good. So communication is the best way to really bring it full circle and include the right people in the process.
Good. So we've already talked about planning.
Yes.
We talked about communication. Okay. What are some of the hurdles that you've seen out there, when it comes down to people and process? Sometimes people are willing to make change. People as well as I do don't like change.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll run as far as they possibly can, jump off the edges of the earth. Yeah. All right, and possibly drown themselves because they didn't want to make those particular changes. Yeah. What do you see?
Yeah, change is hard. Change is hard for people. But what we're seeing as far as I've been doing this is lack of systems.
Okay.
And when I say systems, I'm talking about even the people operations side of systems.
Okay.
The system that is going to help you take, for example, you're running a program And this program is all about helping the youth in the city.
Right.
And you have this great idea. You're mission driven, but you don't have the system to back up that structure.
Sure, right.
So
exactly.
you want to take a scale back and say, okay, how do we achieve our outputs,
Right.
our output, and how do we create a system around this?
Right.
So what I'm seeing is a lack of system, lack of processes to support what the initiative or the programs that people really have in place.
You getting buy-in? Are you getting buy-in?
Initially, no.
That's why I had to ask.
Yeah,
right?
Initially, no. But eventually, when they see the big picture, because as you know this, in engineering, you have to do an end-to-end process mapping.
Sure, right, exactly.
And as you end-to-end process map, you have to convince people to see things differently.
Yeah.
That's one of the struggles I have coming from an engineering background, going into a nonprofit space with this engineering lens, which is not. It's not normal. It's not business as usual.
Spectrums.
It really challenges the status quo.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest challenge. Really, we're not doing business as usual anymore. We have to create a system and a process that is going to help us achieve our goal. That's the biggest thing.
People are probably the hurdles.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to jump over them every once in a while and things of this nature, or reluctant to make those changes.
Yeah.
Because they've been doing it for
a long time.
Very long.
That tribal knowledge is a big one. I love it.
They're doing so very long. I mean, you do the same thing over and over. It's your borderline insanity. Okay. And if you always do the things you do, you'll always get the same results somewhere along the lines. And it's tough for people themselves. All right. And so for those individuals to make those changes, your process is really to help them to guide them to it. And guide them to that sort of, I'm going to say, lead the horse to water. Okay. And guide them. So how's that guidance process work?
Yeah. So there are 3 questions that I ask leaders in the nonprofit space. The first one is, what are those decisions that your team keeps coming back to you? Okay. That's what we start with, a pattern. What are the repetitive? Right. This is where we do that pattern interruption. Okay. What are those processes or decisions that your team keeps coming back to you? So you identify that. The second one is, if you were to step away today, maybe go on vacation, go have a good time with your family, what would stop? Would the team stop execution because you are no longer there to help them make that decision? And then the last one, we've talked about this before, is what are all the processes or things that live in your head that needs to come on paper? Really? So when you're able to step back and identify 3 of these patterns, you are able to see clearly where there are gaps in the execution process. Right. That's where I come in. And that's where I come in and say, okay, how do we create an operational and structural clarity so your team could execute with confidence?
Let's take them one at a time. Okay. I think we should break those down a little bit. Because this is the crux of what we're talking about here. Yeah. All right. Let's take you first. All right. What was that first piece?
The first one is, what are those processes that what are those decisions that your team cannot execute without you being the decision maker on it?
Okay. So where's the problem lie? Does the problem lie in the expertise? Does the problem lie itself? Because unfortunately I've seen a lot of individuals raised to higher levels of management positions and they're not qualified.
Ooh, Rich.
Not only because of the fact itself, they've done so well in the sales aspect, all right, because they were king or a queen in the sales.
Experts.
Exactly.
Yes.
All right. It brought them up to a level of not being able to manage people.
Yeah.
All right. How's that come into play?
That's exactly what it is. That's what we see. There is no confidence in decision making. So everything redirects back to the executive director in these spaces. So once you identify that, you are able to say, okay, what structure do I need to put in place so that all these decisions are not ending up on me? Because then you have decision fatigue because you're constantly making decisions that you've already identified a leader to make, but that leader is not confident enough because you end up being that operating system for your organization, and you're not.
I always go back to say that's not my monkey. Get the monkey off my back.
Right.
All right. And but I think it's extremely important that people acknowledge what kind of skills they have already, and are they able to assess those sticking points,
Yeah.
all right, to make decisionals, already, or decisions themselves that's going to affect whatever's all the way down the rest of the team.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important out there.
Yeah.
Alrighty. The second piece.
The second one is, if you were to step away today, right? What are those decisions that your team will stall in making because you're not there? Similar to the first one where, okay, the team keeps coming to you and asking you questions or kind of like your blessing before they make a decision. Now, when you step away and you're no longer in the room, what decisions actually halt before you come back? So in this situation, we call this, it's a little bit of a structure, but it's more operational.
Yeah, right.
If you are able to identify the processes that lead to the execution, you're no longer needed in that gap, right?
Right, exactly.
So identifying the process, and in the process, there are workflows. Right? There are workflows that say, when you make a decision here, when this part of the process is completed, here's the next step. It takes away the human, the human side of it. And now you're following a process that becomes seamless.
Sure.
And the execution happens.
And I think that communication falls back on that too as well, because as long as each and everybody knows what that next step would be, okay, I understand there's a level of assurity, a level of authority, okay, especially when you look at the military. Okay, I can't make that decision unless my commanding
commander's
officer,
there.
Exactly. Okay. I'm not going to make that engineering decision unless the individuals that are ahead of the project know that this could either cause time, delay, profit, or a loss somewhere along the line in productivity and profitability. And that I understand. But it's also keeping all those folks themselves in the loop, already, and identifying what if, already, hypothetical bargaining in this particular case, okay, in the what if, and looking for that zone of possible agreement, okay, to where it was, we call the ZOPA, right? We just said ZOPA before, but we'll look for that zone of possible agreement itself that individuals can work, act, and kind of work with, already, and I believe that if you're hiring the individual to do that job, all right, they should have the willing trust, and the know-how and the trust themselves to make that decision. Now, a good leader, all right, will probably, hopefully not worry about their own job, but will back up that individual. And I think that's extremely important.
Yeah,
part
that's
of the process,
very important.
You know?
And then if there's a gap, where's the training that comes in to give that person the confidence to make those decisions? But one thing you mentioned that I love is having a feedback loop mechanism. Yeah. Whenever there's a process, there's checks and balances. You know, that's one thing that in engineering, you have to make sure that it's some kind of plan, do, check, and adjust.
Right, exactly.
How do we adjust and really solidify this process? Because it's a continuous improvement so that when I step away, the decision still needs to move forward down the workflow. The last one that we talked about is, what is that tribal knowledge in your head that really needs to come down on paper? Because I've seen a lot of executive directors, really smart, mission-driven, but a lot of the things, the systems, they are the operating system because that knowledge is in their head. And some of it is they hold on to it because they're not sure who to trust. Going back to that trust.
I got you.
They don't know who to trust, or they don't think somebody can execute it as much as they can.
Right.
So I always try to work with them and say, okay, what is in your head? What is something that we need to document that becomes a repeatable process for your team to execute without you being in the room?
Right, exactly.
So if I had to bottle everything up and sum it up, it all has to do with operational clarity and structural clarity, putting the right people in the right place.
Yeah, right.
Assessing the gap, knowing where there needs to be training, where trust needs to come involved, and then create those processes to make it happen.
We're going to talk about operational clarity in just a little bit, because that's a terminology itself that people, I would say, tend to get lost on. You know? But there was a processes that I put out years ago when working with different types of folks and different type of personalities and different type of job and structurings that I call 3R principle. The 3R principle: receive, retain, release.
Okay.
So receive it in for your learning, retain it for your understanding, and then release it out to as many other people so they can adhere to that next step would be.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
and if there's a manual, great. We know some of those manuals themselves are not written to the best.
We could make it digital.
We should. All right. Without a doubt. But to hold back only puts a detriment on the team and those individuals themselves that are aspiring and inspiring to do well in their jobs. So that's a whole big thing. So let's go back. Let's really dive into. We've been talking about people and process.
Yeah.
Okay, and consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay, of realizing what that next steps would be. We talked about some of the hurdles. All right. Now identifying those three particular steps that you're going to start to evaluate.
Yeah.
Okay. You know you're going to have some pushback. You know you're going to have some resistance. Okay. How do you get over those things?
Yeah. Rich, we talked about this earlier. One of a fellow friend of mine that I consulted when I first started getting this, she was like, never diminish what comes really easy to you.
Let's break it down.
Let's break it down,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Never diminish, never take away.
Never take away.
Never reduce. Okay?
Never reduce what comes naturally.
Naturally. He's like, what's natural?
Natural to me is I'm able to identify patterns.
Okay.
I'm able to look at a process, look at an end-to-end planning and see, okay, what are those bottlenecks? What could there be potential bottlenecks? What are those patterns from an engineering standpoint?
Right.
And how do we close the gap so execution is seamlessly and we could transfer their knowledge so anybody could step in anywhere and be able to execute? It's just something that I've been wired to.
That's good.
So
Super.
that's what I bring with me everywhere that I go, every role I'm in, every organization that I step into. It's, okay, how can I help you close the gap? So with your mission-driven mindset, you are able to still achieve and have that final outcome that you desire.
Sure. I have that kind of sixth sense too as well, that I can actually look at a process.
Yeah.
And without a plan, I can execute the entire process already with full execution.
Yeah.
And knowing itself is there. Now, if somebody able to follow that, you'd have to get in between these two earlobes, all right, and identify, all right, what that process would be. Sometimes I see the end before the end. And I think that really brings clarity to a lot of individuals when it comes down to developing process. Planning is not the easiest thing for people to do already.
It takes you out of your comfort zone.
Sure does.
It's not something people just sit back and say, oh, I'm going to plan out what this program will look like.
Sure.
No, there are things that need to go into that. So
and people themselves, and that's why people and process are extremely important for what you do. And I think what you're saying is that you're bringing people and process together.
Yes.
And I think it's very, very unique that individuals find that. And some folks themselves, they'll go throughout their whole entire life and never bring process to people and people to process. And I could be talking about individuals themselves running major, major entities, major companies and corporations. And they just may miss that. All right. So the level of really working and developing that relationship with people and process is not at a beginning stage. Okay. It's not a middle stage. It could be at a growth stage or not making that particular growth. All right, or moving in a direction where now the world has now made a total shift.
Yeah.
But we're seeing it right now. We're seeing in things themselves that how AI is coming in, okay? How virtual reality is making its play, how robotics is making a play out there too. So I'm very interested in that. I'm very interested in that robotics side because I'm seeing these, and they're failing miserably sometimes too as well. But even just taking AI and taking VR and virtual realities, and you start taking a look at robotics, what robotics are doing themselves, there are folks themselves out there, and we've talked about it, is that they're very hesitant.
Very hesitant.
All right. And they're not wanting to give up any of that internal knowledge.
Yes.
All right.
It's a deal.
How do we get them to release this?
I am so glad you said that, Rich. Because what I found out is when an organization grows, it exposes your lack of operational structure and clarity.
Yeah.
So to your point, when an organization is growing and there's growth in the economy or there's growth in new robotics and AI, the hesitation is still there.
Sure.
But you almost have to, it's not going anywhere. You almost have to come alongside it and see how that could be beneficial for your organization. Because the main thing is still the main thing.
Sure, right, exactly.
How do we increase productivity?
Right, productivity, profitability are always going to be number one.
How do we make
profit? All right, without a doubt,
How do we, improve productivity? How do we make profit? How do we make sure that we have workflows that support the programs that we need? So one thing that I always say is as you grow, growth is good.
Yeah.
Change happens too, but it also exposes those
Sure.
bottlenecks you have in your
Yeah.
operations.
And don't be afraid of change, folks.
Yeah.
All right.
don't
Change.
be.
Well, I'm going to say it this way. Change is inevitable.
It's inevitable.
Okay, it is. But as change is one of those things themselves, and I know it's hard to get out of the cortex
Yeah.
or get out of the old
Yeah.
skin linings or the linings of the cell. All right.
Yeah.
But the fact is, you may find a whole different level of productivity and profitability.
Yeah.
All right, that actually works and develops relationships
Yeah.
with other factors themselves that could make your job easier, more flexible,
Mhm.
and possibly more abundant. All right, in that
Mhm.
regards.
Yeah.
Mr.
Love
Ewea,
that. Yes.
if there's one thing that you really want to leave with our audience today,
Yeah.
okay, and with all your knowledge and expertise of bringing what you've done from engineering, process engineering, okay, into people and process, all right, and really helping people themselves from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I'm one of the same things that I could look at something and say, okay, that's, I think that should be changed out there, okay, because we're seeing it from a different set of rose-colored glasses, okay,
Mhm.
and perhaps maybe looking at a different dimension of what that end result's going to be.
Yeah.
What is the one thing in your process of what you've seen and what you want to instill with people in today's
Yeah.
program, all right, that's going to put them over the edge and why they need to bring you on?
Yeah. I would say structure is clarity.
Okay.
Once you have the right structure in place, the right people in place, it gives you clarity on how to execute.
Right. I love that.
Absolutely.
Clarity.
Yes.
And I believe clarity is definitely a key
Yeah.
to on-lasting productivity.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to say profitability. We're in a new age.
Yeah.
Okay. And even
Everybody
though,
wants to make a profit.
exactly. Imagine that, right? But I'm thinking itself as we go and people themselves start to realize that there is opportunity to change.
Yeah.
I think clarity itself to seeing what that purpose is and what the end result may be.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though it may take you a little longer to get there. Okay.
You have
But
to
that's in
start
your plan.
somewhere.
You got to
Yes.
start. All right.
You got to start.
Put the feet on the floor.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yes. Absolutely.
Ms. Ewea, this has been a pleasure and an honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And how do people reach you again?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn, Ewea Pettis at LinkedIn, or you could go on my website, someconsult.com. someconsult.com.
Love it. Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Thank
and folks
you so
themselves,
much.
if you're not already in that area opportunity right now for process and people, I think you better start. I think it'd be a good idea to start getting that in. All right. Ewea would definitely be able to help you out through that. So I want to thank you very much again, once again, for joining me on this session, all right, in this segment out here. And folks, I appreciate you hanging out with us. All right. So we're going to see you soon. All right. I want to thank you very much for visiting, coming by on the Rich Hart Show. And hey, we'll see you real soon. God bless and be safe out there.